Good morning, ornithologists. Welcome to the last episode of the Seattle Birds Show with me, Zoe. Make sure you have your Seattle Bird Tracker ready so that we can find the last 3 birds that we haven't learned about in its pages. Let's get started. This is a bird that I know so many of you are really excited about. It's the biggest bird in our book, and it has a lot of really cool attributes on its body that help it survive doing what it needs to do and eating what it needs to eat. What is the name of this bird? Yep, it's a bald eagle. Is it really bald? Does it have nothing on its head? No, it does have feathers all over its crown, but why do you think it's called the bald eagle? Because they're white. And compared to most of its body, if you see it far away, it looks like it's bald because the rest of its body is so dark and its head is so light and white. So that is why it's called the bald eagle, but it's not really bald. And not only is its head white, what else is white on the bald eagle? Yeah, those tail feathers. Do you see those down there? The tail is also white. Why didn't they call it the bald tail eagle? Huh? Just kidding. So what else do you notice about the bald eagle's body parts that you think would help it eat what it needs to eat? Do you see that gigantic hooked beak? Yeah, that is so good for ripping up meat because bald eagles love to eat other animals. They just do. That's what their food is. They like to eat rabbits and fish sometimes, and even small deer and all sorts of little animals, kind of whatever they can find depending on where they live, because bald eagles live in a lot of habitats. So bald eagles that live closer to the ocean might eat more fish. Bald eagles that live more near meadows and fields might eat more rabbits and weasels and squirrels. So it depends on where they live and what they can find, but they have that sharp beak to rip through the meat of whatever animal they catch. And speaking of catching, how do you think they catch all of those animals and pierce them so they don't get away? Yes, those talons. So the talons are really helpful because they're so sharp and so strong. Do you see how long the nails are on those? Do you remember when we taped the real nails to your fingers and pretended that you had talons and you tried to rip apart the fake meat that we made with clay? Yeah, it's kind of like the bald eagle actually has nails in its feet. They're so sharp and they're so long. I wouldn't want it to try to pick me up. Luckily, bald eagles don't eat people. Here's a picture of a bald eagle flying so that you can see another view of its white head, its white tail, its big dark brown breast and wings. And you can also see how the feathers at the end of the wings fan out. Because if you're looking high up in the sky and you just see the outline of a really big bird, it's sometimes hard to tell if it's a bald eagle or maybe another bird of prey. And not only does the white head and white tail give a good hint that it's a bald eagle, but the really massive wingspan with the fanned out feathers near the tips is another good clue. Do you want to hear what a bald eagle sounds like? It's kind of a very high-pitched shriek for such a big bird. It's almost a little noise, a little high-pitched noise for such a big bird. Listen up. Pretty amazing, huh? Can you make the sound of a bald eagle? it's kind of high pitched. So you might want to warn anyone else who's in your house nearby to cover their ears. Ready? Kind of fun. Good job. We'll keep practicing. There's also another sound that bald eagles make that's even like smaller and a little bit more trilling sounding. Give this a listen. I almost think that it sounds like the bald eagle's laughing when it does that with its little high-pitched voice. I can't really do it like the bald eagle can, but I would imagine that that's what bald eagles sound like if they laugh. But that's just another way they communicate. Should we listen to that one more time? There are two more things that I want to share with you about the bald eagle before we wrap up this bird. Firstly, look at this picture. There are two eagles in this picture. And guess what? They're both bald eagles. Even though the one on the top has the look of a bald eagle that we were just practicing with the white head and the white tail and the dark rest of its body, the other one is also a bald eagle. The other one is just a younger bald eagle. We call that a juvenile. That's the science word for a young animal, a juvenile. So this juvenile bald eagle hasn't finished growing its white head feathers or its white tail feathers yet. And its whole body is just kind of a brownish dappled with some white in there. So if you see a really big eagle soaring overhead, if it still has those big wings with the fanned out flight feathers at the end, and it still has the white big hooked beak and those big talons, it's still a bald eagle. It's just a young bald eagle. So it's a little bit tricky when you see a juvenile since they don't have the bald head yet, but it is still a bald eagle. The other thing I wanted to share with you before we finish the bald eagle is their remarkable nests. Their nests are not just big, they're not just giant, they are enormous. Bald eagles can build nests that can be 4 or 5 feet across. That's like me if I laid down from my toes to my head would be about the size of a bald eagle's nest all the way across. And if you remember in the science classroom how we have that blue tape circle on the carpet area, that's about how big a bald eagle's nest can be sometimes. So big, even bigger occasionally. The biggest bald eagle nest that scientists have discovered was about 9 feet across. That's humongous. And they're not just big size wise, they're also so heavy. Because look at the materials that the bald eagle uses. Do they use little twigs and little sticks and grasses? No, no, no. They use big, thick branches, like thicker than my arm sometimes. So those nests also weigh a ton. Literally, they weigh a ton. A ton is a unit of measurement that is 2,000 pounds. And that's how much a bald eagle's nest usually weighs, is 1 ton, or also you can say 2,000 pounds. But they can also be even bigger and heavier than that. Sometimes they can be 2 tons, which would be 4,000 pounds. That's like as heavy as a car. Like the car your family drives around, that's about how heavy bald eagle nests can be sometimes. Imagine trying to lift your car. That'd be how hard it would be to lift a bald eagle's nest. And that biggest bald eagle's nest, the one that they found that was 9 feet across, that weighed almost 3 tons. And every ton is 2,000 pounds. So if you have 2,000 2 more thousand, and 2 more thousand. That means that a nest that was almost 3 tons was almost 6,000 pounds heavy. That's like the weight of an elephant. Oh my gosh. So eagles are not just amazing hunters and flyers and really cool to watch, but they're also amazing nest engineers and architects to figure out how to build a nest that is strong and cozy and won't break to hold up its little baby, but also a nest that's so heavy, and figure out how to keep that up in the tree. So they are pretty remarkable birds. Now, let's see if you can find the picture of the bald eagle in your bird tracker. I wonder if it's going to be an adult or a juvenile. Look in your tracker too. I found it. Did you? There it is, bald eagle. Is this a grown-up or a juvenile? It's a grown-up. It has its full white bald head and its bright white tail feathers. There it is. Let's do another bird. Here is our next bird, which is in the same category as the bald eagle. This bird is also considered a bird of prey. That's what they call birds that are really great hunters and eat mostly other animals. But the word prey means animals that get eaten. So why aren't these called predator birds? I don't really know, because these birds are the predators. They are the hunters, but they eat prey. So maybe that's why they're called birds of prey. Anyway, this next bird of prey is a red-tailed hawk. Any guesses on why it's called a red-tailed hawk? Yeah, because its tail is kind of a reddish color. From underneath, it looks a little bit more light brown, but from above, it's a pretty brilliant reddish brown color. So that's where they get their name, red-tailed hawk. But usually you'll be seeing them from underneath. So let's go back to this picture. What markings do you notice on the rest of its body besides its reddish brown tail that would help you tell it apart from other hawks and eagles? Do you see those brown stripes all over it? It's mostly brown, in fact, on its breast and the tops of its wings, but also has all of those other little brown stripes and stuff too, and a brown head. So a lot of its body is brown. And from above, it's also even more brown with just a few little stripes here and there. And then you might not see it flying though. So sometimes it's also good as an ornithologist to study what a bird looks like while it's perched. Because one of the places that I see red-tailed hawks around Seattle is perched on street lights, especially over the freeway. Because as you can see from that big, sharp, hooked beak, they also like to eat meat. And there happen to be, sadly, sometimes around freeways, animals, other little animals that get hit by cars and maybe kind of go off onto the sides. And then the red-tailed hawk might swoop down and eat them up. Or they also just kind of, I think, see rats and rabbits and other little animals crawling and walking around on the sides of the freeway, like those grassy areas on the sides and in between the freeway lanes. So I think that's another reason why the red-tailed hawks like to hang out up on the street lights above the freeway, looking with their very sharp vision. They have such good eyesight. They can see really high level of detail even from far away. But they're scanning, and they go, oh, there's an animal! And they swoop down and they grab it with their piercing talons, which aren't quite as big as the bald eagles, but you can still see in this picture, they are very strong and very sharp. And from the side, from if you see a red-tailed hawk perched like above the freeway or somewhere else, they're going to seem mostly brown if you're seeing the back or the side. And if you see them from the front, maybe some dappled white in there too. So that's the red-tailed hawk's looks. Now let's take a listen. They sound kind of similar to an eagle, but slightly less high-pitched. And they don't do all of those little trilling noises like the second video of the eagle either. They mostly kind of have a higher pitched shriek, and that's their main call. Can you try that? Nice job. So that is the red-tailed hawk. Can you find that one in your bird tracker? Let's look together. I found it, did you? Here it is. Look at that wingspan. They also have feathers that do spread out a little bit at the ends of their wings, but they're different colors than even a juvenile bald eagle, and they're smaller than a juvenile bald eagle. So if you see a big bird of prey up in the sky that's brownish, if it's really big, it's probably a juvenile bald eagle that just hasn't gotten its white head and white tail yet. But if it's a little bit smaller, and especially if it has some of the dappled stripes on it, or if you see kind of a reddish brown tail, that's going to be the red-tailed hawk instead. So let's do one more bird today, and then we'll be done. Here is our last bird of the Seattle Birds show, and this one is called the spotted towhee. The spotted towhee is one of my favorite birds. I think I say that a lot. That must be because I like all birds, but it's true. I love the spotted towhee too. The spotted towhee is a fun and funny bird because of how it looks for its food. So I'll show you a video of that in a moment. But before we get to that, let's check out its body so we know how to spot it with our eye. Do you get it? Spot it, because it's called the spotted towhee. Why do you think it's even called the spotted towhee? Yeah, because it has all those spots on its wing. So that's where it gets its name, the spotted towhee. And what other colors and markings do you see on it? Yeah, do you see how it has mostly a black head, like another bird that has a black hood on, and mostly black wings besides those little spots, and mostly a black tail sticking up in the back, and a black beak. But what other colors are there, especially on its face? Yeah, look at that eyeball. That eyeball is kind of a bright orangish red. You can't always see it from far away because it's kind of small, but it's cool to notice now that we're seeing this close-up picture. And it also has that same orangey red color on the side of its breast, not covering the whole breast like the robin did, but just on the side. So remember, the robin had the reddish rusty color all the way on its breast, but the spotted towhee only has a little bit on the side of its breast. And the robin had a yellow beak, and the spotted towhee has a black beak. And the robin is about this big, and the spotted towhee is about this big. So sometimes ornithologists get them a little mixed up because they do have some similar colors. So you got to look especially carefully to tell them apart. Also, the way that their body is shaped, usually a robin has its back angling down with its tail pointed along or down to the ground. And if you look at the spotted towhee's tail, it likes to stick up a lot of the time. Not always, but a lot of the time. So that's another clue that it's a spotted towhee and not a robin. You ready to hear what the spotted towhee sounds like? Yes, let's do it. Such a little kind of raspy sound. They do make other noises, but this is their main sound that I hear them make in Seattle. In fact, I have a spotted towhee that lives in the bush right outside my bedroom, so I hear this noise a lot. So this is the main noise that we're going to learn as ornithologists to practice listening for a spotted towhee. So let's listen one more time, and then we'll practice making it with our mouths too. All right, let's give it a try. It's always fun to practice sounding like a bird, huh? Even if we're still working on it. So sometimes you can hear that noise for a spotted towhee, but the main noise that's actually a clue that a spotted towhee is nearby is not a noise that they make with their mouth at all. It's one they make with their feet. Because if you look at their beak is pretty strong. I'll show this other picture again. It's pretty thick, so it can crack nuts and seeds. But their favorite food that their beak is also good for getting because of how pointy it is bugs. But they don't look for bugs on branches like chickadees and other small birds do. Spotted towhees look for bugs on the ground under leaves. So have you guys ever seen a bunch of dried out leaves in your yard on the ground or under a tree or under a bush? That's a spotted towhee's favorite place to look for food. And they need to figure out how to look for the bugs under those leaves, because bugs don't usually just hang out on top of a leaf saying, "Hey, I'm a bug, come eat me." That would be kind of silly. Bugs hide under the leaves. "Please don't eat me, please don't eat me." And the spotted towhee needs to be able to figure out how to look under the leaves to find those little hiding bugs to eat. But does a spotted towhee have hands that can just pick up the leaves and say, "Are you there? Bug, are you under this one?" No. Does a spotted towhee have a rake? Can just rake up the leaves and look for the bugs? Not really. But what's kind of rake shaped on its body? Yes, its feet. So what the spotted towhee does is it hops around, and occasionally it'll hop forward and scratch back like it's raking the leaves with its feet and look around. Are there any bugs under there? Nope. I better scratch again. Hop, scratch. Hop, 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 scratch. So look at this video because it's fun to watch. It almost looks like a little dance move that it's doing as it hops around and then hops forward and scratches back. But it also makes a ruckus. You can hear all the crunchy leaves as it hops on them and scratches them up. So that is a big clue for your listening ear that a spotted towhee is nearby. Let's listen to this one together and watch it too. Did you see? Did you see it hop, 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 and then scratch and look for some bugs? Hop, 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 scratch, look for some bugs. How about we try that? There's not a music video for a spotted towhee that I could accidentally mix up for us to do a dance party, but we can get a little stretching and moving in right now by being a spotted towhee looking for pretend bugs on the floor of our house. Let's do that together. All right, I'm gonna go do it in my kitchen. Let's do it together. Pretend you're a little spotted towhee, and you're going to hop, 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 and scratch. Are there any bugs down there? I don't see any. Oh, look it. Sprocket the dog's gonna come help us look for bugs too. Let's do our little spotted towhee move again. Ready? Hop, hop, hop. Scratch back with your feet. Any bugs? I don't see any. Hop, hop, hop. Scratch. I see a bug. Yum, 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 yum. Did you find one too? That was delicious. Good job being a spotted towhee. All right, let's find the spotted towhee in our bird tracker. You look in your tracker while I look in mine. Is it this one? No, remember that's the robin. This one doesn't have the spots on its wing for being a spotted towhee, and it has a yellow beak and kind of a different shaped body too. That's not the spotted towhee. Keep looking. I think I found it on the very next page though. There it is. Did you find this one too? Spotted towhee with that spotted wing and that black beak, not the yellow one like the robin, and the red eye and just the side section of orangey red on its breast, not the whole breast being reddy orange like the robin. So there's the spotted towhee, and that is the final bird that we needed to learn about in our bird tracker. So congratulations, you now know every single bird that's in your bird tracker book. That is 20 birds. You as an ornithologist are 20 birds smarter for some of the birds that are most common to see and hear in our city of Seattle. So next science class, I'll be telling you all about the amazing project we're gonna do to count the different birds we notice in our city around us using our bird tracker. But for now, before I tell you about that project, just practice going through your bird tracker and trying to quiz yourself, or have a grown-up in your family quiz you by covering the name of it and saying, "What's this bird?" Did you guys say northern flicker? If you did, that's it. And if you get it wrong when they're quizzing you, that's okay, because this is just practice. So if they open a page up and they say, "What's this bird?" and you don't know, just say, "Oops, I forgot. Can you tell me?" And then you can see that it's the sparrow. So this is going to be your practice time over the next couple days before we start the official project. So practice by looking at the pictures in your book and maybe having someone quiz you with their names. But then also practice every time you go outside, or every time you even look out a window. Is there a bird out there? Can you identify what markings it has, the shape of its body, its beak, or its feet adaptations to be able to tell if it's one of the ones in our book? You could even use your book to try to find it. Just don't mark anything down yet, because the marking sections are for when we start our project next time. But keep your eyes and ears peeled. Practice figuring out their names and figuring out which one is which when you see real ones. And then I'll tell you all about our official project next time. I can't wait. Thanks for tuning in to all of these episodes of the Seattle Birds Show with me, Zoe. It's been a lot of fun. I wish I could have done this for real life with you in the classroom, but I'm glad that we at least got to do it kind of together from my home to your home. Bye, ornithologists.